This is part 2 of our interview with Steve Brechter. Be sure to listen to part 1 from last week first.
Berkman's a little less known than, say, Myers-Briggs and those type of tools because it doesn't market itself by its name. They do it through licensed consultants. So the marketing goes to consultants, licensed consultants, of which I am one. And then the person who expressed the interest, the consultant would send a link. It's hyperlink now. When I did it, it was pressed down with a number 2 pencil.
I think we do.
Yeah. But it's 297 questions. You do it all online. You press send, and instantaneously you get your report back. Instantaneously. Or your consultant does, and then the consultant sends it to you. And the only thing they make us do as consultants is to commit to at least one session with the client to lead them through the tool so they understand it. Like I say, you've done it. Yeah. It's a little bit more of a complicated tool, so you need to have somebody walk you through it. Yeah. But once you got it, just like you said, Lindsay, you got a tool for life.
Yes.
And it doesn't change. So you can use that then to align yourself with a certain career direction and really get the most out of your career. Again, it's not telling you good or bad, right or wrong, pass or fail. It's nothing like that, as you know, in Berkman. It's just, here are the things from a career standpoint or a development standpoint. Here are the things that the way you answer the questions, you are most like people who succeed in these areas. So it guides you and steers you in that direction. But yeah, I think it's a tremendous tool for organizations to really become higher performing and, blow the socks off the goals kind of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I've never been a big fan of leadership books per se, because I think a lot of times these books on leadership are very theoretical, and it's about somebody who's talking about doing these things, but has never done it themselves.
Right? Yes, I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
I am an operating person by heart. I love to just jump in. In fact, my career at United Technologies and since, has been basically show me the biggest mess you have. Let me get in there and straighten it up. Let me go fix it. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think that leadership, I struggle a little bit with, can you learn how to be a leader? I mean, a lot of times it's either in you or not. Yeah. You either are passionate about developing others and watching others succeed. It's not about you in the spotlight. It's about them, And there's no greater joy for me than being able to work with somebody for a while and then slowly back off in a theatrical sense to stage left or stage right in the shadows and let them have the spotlight and watch them succeed. There's no greater joy. But there is one book that I read not long ago that I thought was terrific because it was a practitioner's book. And I don't know whether you've ever read this one, but it's called Turn the Ship Around. Mm-hmm. It's by a gentleman named L. David Marquette, as I think is his name. Okay. He was a commander, captain of a U.S. Navy ballistic missile submarine.
Okay.
And it was in the Pacific Fleet. And when he got assigned to this ship, this submarine is a nuclear sub. It was, in terms of the Navy's performance criteria, it was the worst ship in the fleet, the Pacific.
Okay.
It got bottom level results and everything. But over the period of a year or two, he turned it around, and he did it by his people, working through his people. And one of the lines that I really liked in it was, empowerment for him isn't even strong enough of a one, because it infers a top-down kind of mentality. I'm empowering you. I'm giving you the empowerment that the responsibility that I had. I'm giving it to you. Now, he used the words emancipate the people. They got it. You got it. I don't have to give it to you. You got it. I now bestow on you the ability to make these kinds of decisions.
Uh-huh.
And there's a great line in there. It used to be the commander or the captain of the sub would sit on the bridge and, sir, request permission to do this, that, or the other thing. And he says, aye, aye, proceed, sir, request permission for this, that, or the, and he says, aye, aye, proceed. He changed all of it. He made them say, sir, I intend to dive down to, 15,000 feet below sea level. And then he would, of course, permission granted, please proceed. But what he did with that is he gave them ownership. I intend to, sir, which means they have put the thought process into it. They own the decision. Right. And it's not in a punitive way, but you get a lot more out of the people and when they make the decisions and they actually call the shots. And he gives an example, too, of one day he told the navigator, take the ship down, to a certain depth, and proceed in a certain compass heading. Mm-hmm. And the guy turns around and says, sir, no, you're wrong. And you would never say that to a commander. And he says, explain. What? And the guy says, sir, if we do that, we're going to run aground. And he shows him on the sonar that going in that direction at that depth, they would run aground in 15 minutes. And so that was his example of you got to move authority to the information, not information to the authority, and give them the power in an educated way, make their own decisions. You're still in charge and you're still ultimately responsible as the commander of the ship, but you need to tap into all their thinking and emancipate them to do their jobs. And it turns out that he went from the worst to the best sub in the Navy within about a year and a half. And the Navy has since changed a lot of their processes on these nuclear subs to more accurately mimic the work that was done on this particular ship. So that was really a good story. That awesome. Gets me excited.
I'm writing down notes. I love that. And so, I wonder, you said you give authority to the person with the information.
Yeah.
Instead of the information to the person with authority.
The line that he uses is move the authority to the information. Don't move the information up to the authority. Move emancipate the people and move the ability to make those decisions down to them.
Totally makes sense.
It does. Yeah. He calls it intent-based leadership. And I follow him on LinkedIn. And, I have nothing to do with him, from a Greystone, doesn't have anything to do with him, or I've never met him or anything, but I'm just fascinated by his work because here's a practitioner that's done it themselves and shows the power of involving and engaging the whole workforce. And a lot of those lessons we use when we go in and we're working with a flight department that needs to be turned around or needs to do some things to become more consistent with industry best practices. Mm-hmm. I believe the answer is already there. People know what to do. The only problem is nobody's let them do it. So, so you got to let them go. And again, you're still in charge and you still have to know what's happening, all the moving pieces, but move the best results, I believe, occur the closer you give the decision-making authority to where the work is being done.
I think that's really, really a good point. And I'm hoping that our listeners can also recognize that when a consulting company comes into the flight department, people like you that have that type of mentality, you're not coming in just to fire the entire department.
No.
You're coming in and trying to make that department better. And I find some people, we do a little bit of consulting, but we also get similar to what I imagine you guys do. People are afraid for their job. And so they just think you're coming in to try and change everything. And it's not. You're trying to come in and empower people. So I think it's really so important for us to recognize that most consultants, I would say most, I could be wrong, but they're not in there just to wipe the slate clean. They're coming in and trying to help. Right.
I think that's a great point, Lindsay. And that's one of the reasons I like doing what we do at Greystone. I'm an operating person at heart. Just throw me in the trenches and let me work with the people doing the job. I learn tremendously by just working at that level down there. But I think when you use an outside consultant or you are undergoing an audit, the first thing you start with is attitude. What's my attitude towards this? Is it about, do I think that this is a gotcha kind of exercise? They're trying to find something wrong and make themselves look good and you look bad. Or am I looking at this the way it should be as an improvement opportunity? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I don't mean to imply that it's like the myth of Sisyphus, where the guy pushes the rock up the hill, and as soon as he gets it right to the top where the lip isn't going over, onto the the top of the mound, it just falls back down. That's frustration. That's called frustration. But I think we all have a natural curiosity to do things better, a little bit better than the day before. And, I don't think there's anybody that comes through the doors of a flight department every day and says, how can I screw the company today?
Right.
Nobody I know anyway.
No, me neither.
People want to do a good job. They want to be given the responsibility. They want to be given the authority to make decisions. They want the decisions they make. They want to have them consistent with the goals and objectives of the organization. But you just gotta let them go and do their job. But if your headset during an audit is, I'm going to stay behind the sandbags, I'm going to say as little as possible, and it's like a court of law or I'm under cross-examination or something, that's the wrong way to look at it.
Seen that. I've participated in that.
Yeah, we are.
Yep.
And I think if you're subject to that, you got the wrong outside advisor or the wrong consultant or you got to be careful how you choose an outside service to come in and do reviews. One of the services we do at Greystone is called a current state assessment. And we'll go in and just do an end-to-end review of the organization. And the way we do it, though, at every step of the way, we watch our language. Because, again, this is not about fault finding or wrongdoing. This is about looking for areas of strength. And there are areas of strength in every single operation out there. And then areas of opportunity, which are areas where you can do a little bit of work to bring yourself more consistent with industry best practices. And the way we at Greystone have been able to, we're blessed really to look horizontally across the industry. We got a good sense of who's doing what and what best practices are out there. So we always try to make it a, success-oriented endeavor. And even in his BAO audit, I always say, again, like you have to choose the auditor carefully for a consultant rather carefully. You choose the consultant carefully. You got to choose your BAO auditor carefully too. They've got to be of the same mindset that, I'm here to help you succeed, not to find things wrong. But what I always tell people to do when you choose the auditor right during this BAO audit, and then go out to Staples and get, a pack of 8.5 by 11, a pad of paper, and go along with the auditor and write down everything he or she says, everything.
Okay.
Because what you get out of that is, even if it's an observation, we used one particular auditor who I really liked. Unfortunately, he's not doing it anymore, but he had the most BAO audits of any auditor on the planet at one time.
Oh, wow.
He had done more than anybody. So he's seen an awful lot.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, studying for an BAO audit is like studying for a drug test. Either you're drinking the Kool-Aid or you're not. You know what I mean?
Yep.
What I used to tell people to do is follow him around with a pad of paper, pad from Staples, and write down everything he says. Because he would say things like, you guys are doing this very well. However, I was at another operator 3 weeks ago. No, it was maybe 2 weeks ago. Oh, I forget. But I was at another operator and they did it this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nugget of gold.
Sure is.
That is free benchmarking,
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done with operators is, whether it's in the scheduling sector or flight operations or maintenance, follow the auditor around, write down everything they tell you, and then bring it back and put it on an Excel spreadsheet, and one by one, nominally group it by common category, and one by one, go through it and say, are we going to do this? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do this? Yes, no, yes. But look at it that way, from an improvement opportunity to improve. And if you look at it that way, I think, it becomes a whole different experience than it would be otherwise. Now,
that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
As far as the schedulers go, I think schedulers do have a little bit of a challenge in becoming more involved in the mainstream of what goes on in the flight department.
Right.
But I think it's not unlike aviation. The flight department has a challenge being involved in the mainstream of the parent company.
Okay. Yeah. Good point.
And the reason is, a lot of times, most times, aviation is not the core business of the parent company. So they're sort of like the redheaded stepchild. We just keep them out at the airport and just care and feed for them once in a while. And they'll do fine. I think the same thing applies to schedulers a little bit, because what they do, what I've learned, what they do is very complicated and very involved. And there's a ton of moving pieces, and they all have to be dealt with at the same time. They have to all go through a very rigorous process of, back and forth and reconciliation with the EAs and at the head shed. And there's typically, 4 or 5 executives traveling at the same time, and they have different schedules, and you have 15 balls in the air at any one particular point in time. And then here comes 16, 17, and 18. And you got to be the kind of person that says, bring them on, bring it on. What do you got? I'm here. I am not wired that way. So I am forever in awe of somebody that can handle those things. But I think because of what scheduling does, and the fact that it is a very specialized niche in the flight department, they are they may find themselves off the feeling of being off on the sidelines a little bit, Now, I think that's unfortunate because I know at Greystone, Jim and I feel the same way, Jim Lauer. We see scheduling as the hub of the department.
Right.
It's not ancillary. It's like the axle on a wagon wheel.
I agree.
You can have a couple spokes missing and the wheel is okay, but you can't have the hub or the axle missing.
Right.
Everything comes in and out of scheduling. So they are an integral part of the department. It's like to me, another analogy is a 3-legged stool. You have the legs of the stool in a flight department as flight ops, the pilots, maintenance, the maintainers, and scheduling. And you got to look at what happens to a stool if one of the legs is you saw off one of the legs, or they're a little shorter, then falls over. It doesn't work very well. Same thing for here. But I do think in order to get involved, scheduling needs to be a little bit, say, more aggressive in becoming involved.
Good point. Yes.
Than the rest of the department. And frankly, I'm the kind of person that would welcome that initiative from anybody. And I'll involve anybody that wants to be involved like that. I do it in a heartbeat. And I don't mean just in, say, an outside audit, they're looking at scheduling, but an outside audit and looking at flight operations. It's great to have a scheduler there because you get a perspective that you would not get from the pilots or the maintainers. So I think there's one thing that scheduling needs to do. It's to be a little bit more upfront, like, I want to get involved. Use me. Play me, coach. I want in. And if you can work with, depending on the size of your department, whether you've got a scheduling leader or you have a direct report relationship with the director, have that development conversation. Show those aspirations. Tell them what you want. And then when you raise your hand, it becomes part of your development process. I'm doing this because we talked about this being a good experience for me from a development perspective here. So I really want to do this, So I think they have to be a little more assertive, and not everybody's wired for that. And that's okay.
Sure. Right.
God, we need schedulers. We need good people to be down on the, with PFM or BART or tripplanning.biz or whatever, just doing their thing, or the whole thing is a house of cards and it falls apart. But for those who want to aspire to more, just get out in traffic and go ahead and do it. I think another thing that I've seen in flight departments with schedulers also is if you look at the protocols of ISBEO or any outside audit, BASC is another one that people subscribe to these days, and they basically use the ISBEO criteria. They have a different approach, which is sort of interesting. But any of the means of evaluating a flight department, if we'll just use ISBEO as an example now, it really doesn't touch on scheduling other than peripherally. If you read the protocol, it doesn't, But that does not mean that scheduling can't or shouldn't be an integral part of that flight ops manual or that aviation ops manual. So, in fact, we have studied it at Greystone, and we typically, when you look at all the processes in a department, which include not only the stuff that's covered under ISBEO, the protocols, but all the other stuff that has to go on, which is largely a lot of the maintenance processes that aren't touched by ISBEO, the scheduling processes, the business administration processes, the invoice and payables and everything in a department. ISBEO only covers about 40 to 50% of the processes required to run a flight department. So you've got to fill in the other ones yourself. And so therein, I think, lies an opportunity for our scheduling friends out there, that create your version of the FOM, which is a scheduling manual, and hyperlink it into the FOM in some way, in the section for scheduling, which is usually this short,
right?
Hyperlink it in. Like, we have a scheduling manual, and here's the link, hit it, and here it is, and that will impress the living daylights out of an ISBEO auditor, because let's face it, having grown up in quality at United Technologies, like I did, basically quality is say what you do and do what you say. So if there's no say what you do piece, how can you evaluate? It remains a black art, off to the side a little bit. But if you're bold enough and courageous enough to say, here's how we run scheduling here, here's what we do. You can look at any piece of this. We invite you to look at any, step forward and be open and invite the. They're impressed beyond belief that the department does it. So my observation in a lot of flight departments is you take that initiative and get out in traffic and really put yourselves out there, and you'll be amazed at the results. I think, how you'll be included in the organization.
I agree. And I think if more schedulers could also when consultants come in, take that as an opportunity to improve, which is what you were talking about before. Because here's what I hear a lot of times. I'm so busy. I'm too busy. Everybody dumps all their projects on scheduling, which actually is quite often the truth.
It is.
So we get a lot of different projects. So we're like, I can't work on maybe the hyperlink because I'm too busy. But if we were to maybe adopt and go out and look at or take opportunities for improvement from the consultants that are coming in, we could perhaps streamline our processes, which would allow us to have more time to do these other projects, which in turn would elevate that position.
I couldn't agree more, Lindsay. And I think you make an excellent point in that one of the things that you can effectively use consultants for is force multiplication.
Yes.
In other words, you are busy. Schedulers are incredibly busy, and they don't have a lot of control over the time. You don't know what's coming next, You don't. You start the day. I work close enough with enough of them to know you start the day with one plan, and by 9:30 in the morning, you're on to plan double L.
Right.
So but one of the things you can use a consultant for is to do a lot of that legwork. Now, they don't do it for you. They work with you, but they spend a little time here, a little time there, little by little is frequency of time versus duration of time, and help you stitch together your processes. I can remember one client that we did that with. We did that for the schedulers. We created a scheduling manual with them. We also did it for the business administration part. A lot of times schedulers, as you know, get assigned all the payable business administration stuff. So we did that. We documented and codified all those processes. And it didn't take a whole heck of a lot of time, but we were able to, again, we don't know how to run the business, but we can do the legwork for you. We interview you, we talk to you, we ask questions, we pull it out, and we lay it out, then you react to it. And so that's I think force multiplication, is a great way to approach some of these things. And when I can remember that one client, when the ISBEO auditor came in, he wiped his head and said, I have never seen anything like this before. I mean, this is a top shelf flight department.
Right.
And it wasn't our work. We just codified what they said they were doing, what the schedulers do.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think, yes, it does take a little bit more initiative and a little bit more time, but that's the way you effectively use an outside auditor, I think, in those ways, starting with the attitude that this is about improvement. This is about doing things differently. And there's another factor or another force, I think, in aviation overall, regardless of whether it's Part 91, 135, 121, 125, whatever, that really doesn't do a flight department any favors. And that is the way the FARs are written. Now, I'm a big fan of the FAA. I'm a big fan of the FARs. We have the safest air transportation system on the planet because of the FARs. Mm-hmm. But here's one way that I think they unintentionally could hinder us a little bit. They're generally written with minima in mind. In other words, you have to do at least this, or at least that, or at least the other thing to comply, with this regulation here. And I think, again, totally unintentionally, what it has done in the industry is given the subconscious thought that I am racing to the bottom. I only want to do as little as I have to because that's the way the regulation tells me.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the antithesis of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Here's as little as and so when you go into flight departments and you get this resistance to continuous improvement and the resistance to SBAO, I think a lot of it is unintentional, but it's the way the regulations are written. I don't have to go do this other stuff. So why would I spend the time and energy doing it? And it's about improvement. So, we see that a lot. And there's still a lot of flight departments where they dig their heels in and I'm not doing a SBAO. I'm not, and sorry, I don't agree with you. You should always be striving for that ring.
Striving to be better.
The next ring in the trapeze and go to the next level of excellence. And when you think about it, how can you represent to your leadership, your corporate leadership, that we are adopting the latest industry philosophy on safety and risk mitigation if you can't put that plaque up on the wall? If you don't have a standard by which you have been measured by an outside independent set of eyes and saying that we attest that you are living the latest standard of safety and risk mitigation. And that goes back to my quality days in manufacturing and operations, that it was a requirement then. The reason that the manufacturers do it is that ISO was often a purchase order requirement, especially from the European customers. You had to be as ISO 9000 registered to win this contract. So it was a forcing function. They had to do it. We don't have to do it in business aviation. And the way the regulations are written, it doesn't encourage you to do it either. So it really is that's why I say attitude. It's an internal attitude. And that's a big part of what the director needs to bring into the organization is being that flag-waving, banner-carrying champion for improvement and always striving for better and better, not in a frustrating way, but in a curious, out of natural curiosity. And I think scheduling can be a huge part of that by carrying that banner, with the director.
Do you think then that there's some parallels? We've already drawn some parallels between ISO 9000 and SBAO, but ISO 9000, I'm not sure when it was implemented, but now it sounds like everybody has it. And I apologize, I'm not very up on all of the manufacturing audits, etc. But it sounds like everybody just does that, and that's what across the board everybody does. So do you think that's going to come into aviation soon, and we're going to get past some of these barriers?
Well, the FAA is talking about it, about some SBAO-like requirement here, and I'm just of the thought process, why wait? It's going to come sooner or later. And if you've already been down the road, you got to step up over most people. Then your back's not against the wall. You're doing it for all the right reasons. One SBAO auditor that we use, the same one that I said to write it, or everything down that he says on a pad from Staples, he had another good point. And that is, God forbid that there would ever be another spate of accidents involving business aviation or something. And then SBAO or something like it gets imposed on the industry, and he likened it to DASSP, the Washington security protocols to get into Reagan National. God forbid that anything happened in the air piracy, then every airport's going to have one of these, one of these DASSP like requirements. And it's the same thing with quality and improvement, for risk mitigation, if driven by a spate of accidents. So why not get ahead of it and just do it for the right reason instead of being potentially grounded or able to not operate into certain airports because you're not qualified yet. Just get out ahead of it.
Sure. Well, it always feels better to do something because you want to. And I kind of say that in air quotes, but you kind of want to instead of being mandated. Nobody likes to be told anything to do, and you'd rather do it.
Right.
Because you want to. Yeah.
That's right.
Great point.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, it has been so great talking to you. You have just a ton of insight and experience along the way. And I think it's really been helpful for our listeners as well.
I hope so. And I would love to do it again. If there's any other way that we can help, I would just, I love to do this. And business aviation has given so much to me that, I love to sort of give back. And I guess if there's one thing I would leave with your listeners, it would be like Woody Allen, I love quotes. And one of Woody Allen's famous quotes is 80% of life isn't showing up. So, just get out there, push a little bit, showing up, get out in traffic, get that manual written, volunteer to get into those audits. You can carve out the time, even if it's, again, frequency versus duration, just a piece of it. But just, yes, it is a little unfair. And yes, it takes a little bit more work, but there's nothing for me when I'm running a flight department, even for an interim period, to see people coming forward and say, play me, throw me in the game. I'm here. Because so often you see the other side. I don't have time. I can't do this. And I don't want to do that. And don't give me a collateral duty. But it's a breath of fresh air to a aviation director to see that positive attitude.
Reach out. Yes, I'd say I can. Say yes. Yep.
That's right.
That's great advice. Oh, so, Steve, what if somebody wanted to ask you some more questions or maybe wanted to reach out to you? What is the best way to find you?
We are easily available on the web. Our website is www.graystoneadvisors. It's all one word.
Great.
GRAY and then stoneadvisors.com. And it has all our contact information on it. We love what we do. There's nothing more satisfying for us than to come in and help a flight department get to the next level of excellence operating.
Well, and I've seen you I've experienced you guys do it multiple times. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It's spectacular.
And thank you for your help. You've got a little niche there that I think is just amazing. Everybody I talk to about it says, why didn't I think of that?
Oh, good. Good. Yeah. I think for many years, the scheduling dispatch section almost was forgotten or maybe not looked at as being as important as I really think it should be and is. And so I just try and highlight that.
Yeah. Well, we've had nothing but great experiences with your team and, thank you for what you do.
Likewise, Steve. Well, great. Thank you again very much. And yeah, we'll catch up with you again sometime again soon and we can talk more.
Super. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.